Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's The In Show, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia and across the globe.
Hi, this is David Grice and Troy Sincock once again. We're talking all about innovation and how are those post-hybrid world Adelaide Blues going, David?
Well, once I woke up from the hybrid world Adelaide coma, I started building bathrooms.
What are you talking about?
Well, I just happened to have a past life where I built stuff and I decided to build a bathroom in a day.
You're a changed man. Hybrid world Adelaide happens and look what you've turned into.
I know. Back to Bob the Builder again.
It's been a busy time in Adelaide, that's for sure. I went to the Adelaide Film Festival a couple of times, saw an incredible documentary on Grace Jones and this thing called Brumley's Suitcase, which was all about some Adelaide musicians going over to Austin, Texas, and they opened up a suitcase of an old gospel great, discovered all these lyrics that they hadn't made into songs yet, and then gave the artists the lyrics and had them do that.
That's just brilliant, isn't it? Like, just being able to rebirth some of these things and ideas and so forth that came out. It would have been absolutely extraordinary to listen to. On the show today, we're joined by Tim Angel, Managing Director of Cortex Interactive, who solve business problems by providing immersive experiences. And you'll never believe we're going to speak to somebody who hasn't got any keys. One of the first recipients of a dermal implant. His name's Richard Edwards, and he's going to tell us more about how he leads that lifestyle.
Now here's Claire with more in news, including a story about a company that is repurposing underground car parks and using them to build robotic microprocessing centres. What else have you got for us, Claire?
Thanks, you two. In America, a team of researchers are developing a cure for the degenerative eye disease glaucoma with the help of an unlikely furry friend, a mouse. Scientists from the University of California in San Diego are studying the retina of a mouse, which they believe will help them treat and find a cure for the disease. Glaucoma, an eye disease where sight is lost because of damage to the optic nerve, is the second largest cause of vision impairment around the globe. The blindness occurs gradually, causing a considerable loss of peripheral vision before you realise you're having trouble seeing. Usually there are no symptoms and it cannot be self-diagnosed. It can only be detected during an eye test. At the moment, there's no cure and vision can't be recovered. Only early detection can stop or slow down its progression. However, this team of researchers hope that these experiments will eventually become clinical trials that could potentially treat and cure this eye disease. Researchers from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology have developed an algorithm that can determine the greenest cities in the world. The system, created by a team at MIT's Sensible City Lab, is called Treepedia. It searches through Google Street View images to rank the greenest cities by estimating what percentage of each image contains trees. The results are then placed on a map online and each street is given a green index level, which is a rating of how green it is. The map shows that Tampa is the leafiest city with a green index level of over 36%, followed by Singapore with almost 30%. In third place is Sydney, which is tied with Vancouver with almost 26%. But this isn't just about bragging rights. The research could provide interesting health insights as less greenery in cities is linked with higher levels of stress. In Israel, a company is developing a system that can drastically reduce delivery times around the world to just 1 hour by building an underground network of shelf-stacking robots. Common Sense Robotics is a company that creates robots for microprocessing centres. Now they're trying to use this technology to deliver goods and groceries to consumers in a faster and cheaper way. The company wants to bring huge processing centres into cities by compressing them into smaller facilities. This means centres could be built into basements or underground car parks in the city instead of in a large warehouse out of town. They hope to use their own robots to man the warehouses, load delivery boxes and ship the items to their destination within an hour. CEO of Common Sense Robots, Elram Goran, believes these robots could even be used by supermarket giants. Elram's also revealed that this technology and concept could be used in third world countries to build warehouses for emergency hospitals. Over the next 2 years, Common Sense Robotics' goal is to successfully hook up a city with their network of microprocessing centres. And that's what's in news this week.
Thanks, Claire. Well, David, I can't believe that my very first job could be a thing of the past. Stacking shelves after school at the local supermarket was the first income that I was able to have.
Well, actually, I'm exactly the same, except I went into John Martin's working in the toy department at Christmas, so I was stacking shelves all the time. So are you suggesting that robots will be doing that for us?
They seem to be suggesting that. What are we all supposed to be, marine biologists the moment we leave school? Like, what about some of these jobs that, end up getting your hands dirty and having you work with people and working in customer service and that type of stuff?
I learnt so much in retail. Like when I was going through school, it got me through a really good income. But it's those people skills that I learnt, learning how to serve the customer, how to put up with conflict that might come your way because you might not have given them what they wanted and stuff like that. So I think this is going to really be kind of interesting. But on the other side of it, the stock control kind of jobs that are pretty mind-numbing, I guess, it will streamline that surely.
Absolutely. David Grice and Troy Sincock talking innovation on The In Show. You can check us out at theinshow.online, Facebook, and follow The In Show on Twitter. Up next, we speak to Tim Angel, Managing Director of Cortex Interactive, about embracing creativity to deliver engaging solutions that leverage the latest in technology.
The In Show. It's all about innovation.
Adelaide is starting to be recognised as a smart city, nationally and globally. The City of Churches is rapidly gaining a reputation as the city for innovation. Smart City innovation is becoming a big part of our future. The Adelaide Smart City Studio is supporting people that are creating new smart city products and services for global markets. What we've taken for granted is now being embraced by residents and visitors alike. Adelaide Smart City Studio, creating opportunities.
Hi, I'm Melissa Miller from Wandering Sound and you're listening to The In Show.
It's David Grice and Troy Sincock, and if you've missed an episode, make sure you subscribe to the In Show podcast on iTunes. In the next 10 minutes, we speak to Richard Edwards, one of the first recipients of a dermal implant in Australia, who explains what it's like to never have to look for missing keys.
The In Show.
Cortex Interactive solve business problems by providing immersive experiences that encourage participation, increase attention, and improve retention rates of the information being presented to your audience. Joining us is Managing Director of Cortex Interactive, Tim Angel. Tim, what led you to developing the company?
Essentially, it's just been a bit of a natural progression. So I myself have always been a very visual learner in what I do. So I grew up in Adelaide and then went to university here. I always did the subjects I enjoyed. And then as a natural progression out of that, my studies were in industrial design, believe it or not. And then as a progression out of that, I was working with the patent and trademark firms within Adelaide and utilising, 3D modelling, etc., to visualise products and visualise solutions. So then that extended and sort of taking those technologies and applying them. So we had a gig in the mining sector. The mining sector was growing there. And then from there, it's just been a natural evolution of, what's been available as technologies that we can utilise to get better visual delivery and better outcomes through visual delivery and better improve retention rates, etc. And obviously now we've got a huge focus on VR, AR, mixed reality. So that really lends itself well to what we do.
You talked about enjoyment of the subjects that you took at university. How important is it for you as a business owner to be doing something that you enjoy?
For me, it's everything. Although there's times you're not going to always enjoy it to the fullest extent, for me, it's been a core principle of what I do. I know some people are maybe forced into taking subjects or doing certain things that they don't want to do by parents or by society or whatever it is, but I was lucky enough that I was able to just do the subjects that I really enjoyed. And then that lent into business. So, I went into a business that I really enjoy I was, hands-on back in the day, obviously modelling a lot. Then that lent, and extended. So now I just sort of enjoy business as a course. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask what probably your favourite part of your business on a day-to-day basis.
It's very stressful. There's no doubt about it. Running your own business has its challenges, but I think for me it's the ability to kind of be agile and sort of make the decisions and be responsible for your own decisions. That in itself sort of applies a lot of pressure, but it means that you can change and you can drive the future that you want to. So,
and there's a lot about backing yourself, isn't there? Like most entrepreneurs and business owners are people that constantly have to back themselves.
100%, yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of times where you do second guess yourself. So another sort of thing that I do is I always lean on others around me, whether they're mentors, whether they're friends, whether they're families. Even if you think you've got that right decision, if you can bounce that off them, that basically they can at least say, well, yeah, I think you're right. So you do back yourself. You're responsible at the end of the day, but I do lean on a lot of other people around me.
I suppose when you nab a key client like BHP, all of a sudden things start getting pretty serious. I mean, you probably aspire to get clients like that in the first place. Then when you've got them, I suppose there's a whole lot of other pressure to retain clients of that kind as well. Tell me about the transition from aspiring to that sort of client and dealing with them regularly.
Yeah, so we do work with a lot of the big corporates, the big clients throughout Australia and internationally now. So a lot of our contracts are with bigger clients. At the end of the day, you're still working with people. So, at the end of the day, they're going to have expectations. Their budgets in these organisations are obviously bigger budgets, but they've still got responsibilities as well. So what we try and do is just make sure we do the best we can. I have fun with them on a project. There's been projects, obviously, where you and the client may not see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, if we can do a really good job, do the best and make them look good as well.
And what types of things are you doing with these major clients?
We've been working a lot with digital applications, through training solutions, through visualisation with architecture, etc. A typical project is quite lengthy for us, but what it means is that, say, for argument's sake, this is a training module or a training application that someone wants to do. So what we'll do is we'll say, they would probably be doing it facilitator-led or through an online strategy or a PowerPoint. So they come to us and say, well, how can we freshen this up? How can we engage our audience? So what we do is we take that content, we work with our instructional designers to say, well, look, what's a new look and feel? What's a technology that's applicable? We're doing a lot with VR, MR and AR, as I said, but we're not just applying that for the sake of it. I think there's a lot of organisations that are just saying, well, this is a really exciting technology, but in certain effect, it's not going to add them any benefit if they deliver it that way. So, yeah, we'll sort of say, well, what are the technologies for a VR project? It allows it for practical training hands-on in hazardous situations where they're not in hazardous situations, so it has great benefit.
That's really interesting when it comes to simulating an environment that perhaps you can't do any other way because of the danger associated with it. Explain to me the gap from the actual situation and what you can do with virtual reality or being able to visualise things in a different way.
The gap is getting less and less. So when we first started developing with the Oculus Rift 6 years ago, we deployed some training. Actually, it was a firefighting piece. We found, you've got this thing on your head and you've got an Xbox controller. So suddenly they're focused on how to interact and they've got this thing, there's a massive disconnect, so it wasn't effective. And then, things like HTC Vive came out. So now you've got these hand controllers. You're still using a hand controller. It's not a native function, but you're interacting and you're pulling out the pin and you're letting off an extinguisher and you're placing yourself in safe positions. And, obviously now where it's going as well is they've got, better tracking, so you can actually track and manipulate your hands in these environments. So then, to the extent that they're plugging sensors on these headsets and actually you're controlling those environments through thought. So what really excites me is how these virtual environments, interactions with them are becoming more native. So, we're going to be interacting in these environments more than we can interact in a physical environment, which is actually going to have added benefit to otherwise performing it as a physical task, in our everyday world. So it's pretty exciting. And then, we've obviously got the ability to extract a lot of data and get a lot more out of that, to sort of assess the individual as well, not just say, well, did they do it? Did they do it? Did they do it well? Are they best placed in this role, or how are they going to handle these situations when they're actually confronted with them? So.
And presumably, obviously, as well, that, as people are watching these people going through this training, there is a lot of ease in the way that you can actually measure their performance based on those real situations.
It makes me think of those old flight simulators, at a time when obviously the planes weren't as able to do what they're able to do now, and what that must have been like versus what we're dealing with today, which would, assuming without having been in front of one, be like being in the cockpit.
Oh, definitely. And I think one of the things with VR and AR, et cetera, is it really is based on a lot of those principles.
And what results are the clients getting out the other end?
They're getting a huge reduction on cost. They're not placing people in otherwise hazardous situations, specific to training. The other thing is obviously measuring other results apart from just competency. And, things like being able to do it remotely, but a lot more effectively as well. So we can suddenly reach a larger audience from any location and actually place them in these situations without, having those physical constraints, definitely.
Tim, what's in for you right now? What's really exciting you about what's on the horizon?
Yeah, I've sort of touched on it a little bit, but I think one of the really exciting things is how we're going to be interacting in these virtual worlds, whether it's at a VR level or an AR level. And, the ability to sort of be able to control these environments with our thoughts, et cetera, opens up with some people that are disabled. They can't actually use their hands or, they can actually control something. They can get to live that world that we can do. And VR is so immersive. And then on an AR, obviously very, very excited about the new AR kit and where that's going to go more from a consumer level. Because at the moment, these applications, VR, we do stuff with the HoloLens as well. It's very high cost for companies, although it's a lower cost than what was otherwise. So, driving that down more at a consumer level is going to be really exciting to see what some people have come up with.
Tim Angel, Managing Director of Cortex Interactive, thanks so much for joining us on The In Show.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
It's David Grice and Troy Sincock on The In Show. You can subscribe to iTunes and listen to the In Show podcast for more innovations. Next, one of the first recipients of a dermal implant in Australia, we speak to Richard Edwards.
Download the Phoner app before you head to your next event. Find people easier, market yourself better, and get connected using Phoner. That's spelled P-F-O-N-R. Phoner. Available in the App Store now.
Hi, I'm Eva Balandvnook from Microsoft Australia, and you're listening to The In Show.
Now, this is an interesting one. A chance encounter with an IT company led to me meeting one of the first recipients of a dermal implant in Australia, quite by accident. Richard Edwards fascinated me with his stories of leading a keyless lifestyle, and now we're happy to have him on The In Show. Richard, how did this come about? Because you're a very early adopter.
So back in early 2012, I actually lost my identity. I had it stolen, and all of my forward-facing accounts on the internet were taken. My passport, my bank accounts were used overseas. And I sort of thought to myself, okay, well, this has happened. Now what? I found RFID. I did some research on the web, and I thought this might be the way to go. So after a bit more research and some convincing of my colleagues and friends, I went ahead and did it. And I was like, wow, I've got subdermal implants in my hand now. What can I do with that? I guess now I'm completely keyless and, running simple and secure.
So tell us, what is a subdermal implant?
So a subdermal implant is a chip the size of 2 grains of rice, and it can be placed anywhere in the body, and it is simply a key. So it is a code that can close circuits or gain access and entry to different applications. And I have them in my left and my right hand, my left to control my personal life and my right to control my business life.
It feels so weird, but it only feels weird, I suppose, because not everyone has one. Do you expect that others will take it on, and will this become part of everyday life?
Right. So they say that by 2020, 1 in 5 people in America will have some form of RFID, whether it be subdermal in a watch, ring, bracelet, or a necklace, to prove identity, because identity theft is so high. And as you can see, I mentioned at the start that I already lost my identity. I don't want to really have that happen again. Social media is going crazy about it right now. There are countries all over the world that are taking it on and really being enthusiastic and encouraging to people to get these subdermal implants for transport, simple applications in transport. Instead of having a Metro card, they just use their hand.
So when your identity was taken from you, there would have been a number of different options available to you. Why did you make this choice? And was it because of how you felt at the time? Because it sounds pretty extreme what you went through. Like, you really lost everything.
I guess back then I was a little bit oblivious to the technologies that were out there at the time, and I wanted to try something new. Being in the IT space, I've always really been interested in technologies and sort of what is to come. One of my colleagues at the time did have RFID, and it was very hush-hush. No one liked to talk about it because it was just such an uncomfortable thing. The fact you're putting a piece of technology under your skin. So I went off and ordered those parts, and they came in from America. At the time, there was only one company that produced these. They're better known for their integration in cats and dogs as identification. So a lot of people say that it can be tracked by the government. In fact, that it has really a reading range of only 5 centimetres. Unless I've got a big antenna out of my head, they're not going to be able to find me.
So have you had any adverse effects physically or health-wise because you've got this under your skin?
So they've been in my hand, as I said, since July 2012, and not once have I had any problems with them. They're tamper-proof, so they were trodden on when I first got them, and I never have had any issues.
So 2012, that was before things like PayPass existed.
Correct, yeah.
So what we're talking about here is a potential way that people can manage bank accounts, can create transactions, can do all sorts of things like that. Are you seeing that happening anywhere at the moment?
At the moment, not so much with the banks, because there is a whole security side to it. There is simply no on and off switch like you see with the apps nowadays. There are beta tests running all over the world, as I said before, about transport. There is a man in Sydney who has taken on a device in his hand similar to mine, but it is an NFC chip, so near field communication, runs a different frequency and can be read and written. So the code has been written to that chip, and he has used that to simply scan on, scan off the Opal system in Sydney.
Tell me about it being inserted. Like, did you have to go to a GP? How did that work?
I actually had them done at a place called Hair House Warehouse in the city because they had experience in previously implanting subdermal RFIDs. It was done by a 10-gauge needle, so 3.4 mil in diameter, and was simply entered between the thumb and the index finger. and pushed under about 3-4 centimetres to lift the skin off the muscle. The chip is then slid underneath and then a plaster bandage is put over. You're lucky to even bleed from the procedure.
So what is it like for you not having keys? I mean, you've been like this for, 5 years or so.
Yeah.
What has it actually given you? And I get there's convenience, but, is there a certain freedom that comes with, just not having to think about where you left your keys?
I guess the convenience there is the fact that when you go out, you're not feeling both pockets and your butt pockets as well, trying to find your keys, wallet, phone, whatever else you take with you. When I'm out, I don't have to worry about looking after so much. I can simply take my phone because nowadays you can tap and pay with your phone. So I don't need to carry a wallet for cards, and there's the no key aspect, right? I only carry an alarm module to get into my car, but then I just simply scan over the ignition sensor and the car is on.
So I've seen the RFID system work, especially around Europe, with just like a wearable wristband. Especially at conferences, I find that over there they're using it a lot for things like scanning in and out of a conference session, and within a minute after you've left the conference session, you've got the PowerPoint presentation on your email of that presentation that you just saw. Are you seeing this kind of embedded technology now or implanted technology used in any ways like that at this point?
Well, I would like to see it, as we were talking about before, come out in the way of, simply paying for objects and services, I suppose. I guess that the security behind the sub-dermal side is that you can't simply just go up to someone and take it from them. It is there and it's secure. It's hidden.
Mm-hmm.
So you said in 2020, 1 in 5 people in America will be engaged in some sort of RFID or this kind of technology. Sure. Where is it at right now?
At the moment, there are little things. For example, diabetics, they carry a wristband that has their details. Nowadays, they're using RFID tags to be able to identify people. And this is the same thing. If into the future people are in a serious condition where they're unconscious, how do you identify them? And if this is going to be integrated into the health system, it's a simple way to go, hey, this is so-and-so. At the moment, I haven't really seen too much more on the full integration of this. I do know that, as I said before, the metro systems, that's the most simple access and door access to an office or a home. But it really just relies on people that are motivated to find out the other possibilities with these chips.
And how far off do you reckon we are with this in terms of the mass population? Do you think this is something, like you said, 2020, but is it going to be fairly soon once that adoption starts to take place?
I think the scary part is that a lot of people will go subdermal. No thanks, I don't want anything under my skin. But it needs to be marketed properly. This isn't a form of us tracking you as a big brother thing, because people are oblivious and misinformed and they think that's the way it's going to be. So I think that if it's sent across with the right message, people might go, hey, that is good for me. I'm going to be able to do this, this, and this. And there aren't any negatives because they're trying to eliminate the risks of identity theft and the chances of losing a piece of technology. The only thing is, every day technology steps forward, every day a hacker steps forward. So, they really have to cover the loopholes as we step forward.
Have you had any friends take it up, or is this sort of this friendship group within Australia from people that have the subdermal implant?
So as I mentioned earlier, I took it on after my colleagues had theirs done. They were interviewed by Today Tonight around the technology and sort of going, wow, this is actually a thing. None of my personal friends have been brave enough. I do have a business partner in Sydney who has gone, wow, that is the coolest thing. And she's gone out and bought her chips. They are NFC rather than RFID because that's the latest and greatest tech.
Is it an expensive thing to do?
Surprisingly, they're not as expensive as you'd think. In 2012, each hand, $10 a chip.
Wow.
And people will just go, whoa, no. They guess thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
The most expensive part was the implanting, $40 per hand. And that was just done, as I said, at a hair joint. So
wow.
You can go out and buy it now. And because it's becoming more popular, the companies that did get involved early on like to put a markup on there. So, you're looking $100, $200 a chip now. And it comes with a full self-implanting kit. So you don't have to go out and get it done somewhere. You can do it all yourself.
It really is remarkable because, if you'd presented this option to me as something, that was black and white or something that I saw on TV, I think I would be thinking differently. But now that I've met you face to face and seen the human face of, someone with a subdermal implant, all of a sudden it feels less foreign. Do you find that with, when you're explaining things to people that they expect you to be weird or...
Somewhat. Some people go, I've met, a human robot, and it's good dinner conversation at a bar, for example. People will come along and they'll go, okay, whoa. And you sit there and you look at them in shock for a little while. But then you give them some reassurance and say, hey, look, it's not just me. A lot of people are doing this, and this is the way of the future. I mean, I don't want to sound like evolutionary, but, every day technology is changing and we need to adapt with it or we're going to be left behind.
Absolutely. Richard Edwards, thanks so much for joining us on The In Show.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
It's all about innovation on The In Show, and if you've got an event you'd like us to highlight, just drop us a line at theinshow.online, and you can check us out on Facebook and Twitter.
Next week on The In Show.
We catch up with Brad Chilcott, a pastor and a progressive thinker, and he's the founder of Welcome to Australia, engaging with different cultures both locally and around the world. And we speak to Flavia Tatanardini, who's currently part of the expert reference group reviewing space capabilities in Australia.
Claire will have more weird and wonderful innovations from all around the world, and make sure you check out theinshow.online. There you can subscribe to the show on iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating if you like. Do you reckon this show is deserving of that, Dave?
I hope so.
You can listen to the podcast while you're there. Find out more about this week's guests. Share an innovation if you're working on one at home, no matter how big or how small. We want to know what you're up to. And you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Well, it's been another great show again this week. We'll talk more about what's in next Monday on The In Show. Now, before we go, here's Microsoft's Eva Boland-Vanook talking about the fourth industrial revolution and what that means for us.
It's an amazing place to be, and I think it really depends on your mindset, right? Whether you see this as a threat or as an opportunity. So Klaus Schwab, he really announced last year in Davos in 2016 that 2016 is the start of the fourth industrial revolution. There are two characteristics that he says are very different. One is the pace of change. It is just getting faster and faster. And the second is the cost of technology is really reducing quite significantly. Previously, it took a company 20 years to reach a market valuation of $1 billion. And then we have Snapchat and Airbnb. They reached $1 billion in valuation in 2 to 3 years, respectively. So we're seeing this change. And what's really fascinating when you think of Snapchat and Airbnb, they're leveraging other people's infrastructure and they're creating solutions on top of other people's platforms. They're not inventing from scratch. This is this example where if they can do it, anyone can do it. I think for anyone that is feeling challenged, I think there are some things to take real heart at. While automation will continue to grow and jobs will be lost through that, there are 3 things that humans do incredibly well that AI just can't. Social skills. The first one is empathy, the ability to empathise with someone, that emotional intelligence. The second one was persuasion. And the third was teaching others. So they're really valuable skills that we will need even more of as there's more technology in our lives. So anyone who's got any kind of aspirations or capabilities in those spaces, say, wow, hone those skills because they'll become even more relevant. And then there's a LinkedIn report with World Economic Forum just out a couple of weeks ago that said the 2 growth areas in terms of skills are certainly those social skills, what we'd call soft skills, which I guess would surprise some people but things like communication, collaboration, problem solving, resilience, they're going to become even more critical, but coupled with that will be a requirement for basic digital literacy. Being able to navigate yourself around a computer, being able to use, social media, use different applications that are very common in the workplace, and baby steps, and that comes back to, my new role as the National Skills Program Lead, which is how do we craft programs, but even more importantly, how do we create a really positive narrative about this change? Because people aren't going to be motivated to learn new things if they're scared and if they're fearful. But if we can help people say that, wow, you've got these skills, you've got these capabilities, this is how it might change in the future, and let's help analyse for you what your skill gaps might be, and here are some new skills that you can learn that put you in a really good place as our world changes. I think even what happens in a decade, I'm actually hanging out for driverless cars. I think anyone who's got a disability, any older people, we will actually start to empower people in our community who have actually been excluded to some respect. So I think we will see technology play a greater role in looking after older people. So how do we help keep people at home? They're well, they're healthy. Technology will help us stay hopefully more connected. But if someone is at home and there's a fall, and my grandma's 92 and we worry about this as a family, that there is something that can trigger an alert so that she can get medical help sooner rather than later. I actually think we'll see a lot that will permeate our everyday lives, and it has permeated our lives so much that I'm so sure if anyone hid their phone for a day, they would feel like they've been amputated of a limb. So I think that will even continue to get stronger.
That was The In Show. Subscribe to The In Show podcast on iTunes. Presented by David Grice and Troy Sincock. News by Shannon Chamberlain and Claire Murphy. Music by Zach Grice. Produced by Jason Walker. The In Show, brought to you by Adelaide Smart City Studio.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.